Hi, I'm Chef Leander, and this is Small Kitchen, Big Taste. Today we're going to do something a little different. We're actually going to do a demonstration on using a gram scale, and we're also going to talk about how to create pastry. Even in a vegan kitchen, you can create pastry. So we're going to dig into both of those, and in the process, we're going to make some delicious garlic cheese biscuits to go with soup for dinner tonight. When you're doing pastry, there are several things you need. One is you need a device to lift the pastry so it gets light and fluffy. In this case, we're using some coconut milk and just a little bit of apple cider vinegar. It will curdle just a little bit, and that'll help give the lift. We also have, for lift, a flax egg. And we're not going to be using eggs with our biscuits, but this will do the same thing. It's 1 tablespoon of flax meal and 3 tablespoons of water. So those are our 2 lifting ingredients, and we'll leave them there for the moment. Then we need to build the actual recipe, and that's where the gram scale comes in. Now, the recipe calls for 1/2 of almond flour, 1/3 of tapioca, 1/4 cup of coconut flour. When you use a measuring cup, there's a lot of variance. And when you're doing pastry cooking, then you really want your measurements to be very accurate. And so, if you look here, we have the gram scale getting signed up and ready to go. It says 0 grams. Now, there's a problem, because when I put this bowl on here, it's going to weigh the bowl. And when it weighs the bowl, it throws off your measurements. So there's a little button here. On mine, it's in the left corner. By the way, if you want this exact scale is on our store. You can find the link in the description. So if we're going to use a gram scale, the first thing we want to do is turn it on, and it will set to 0. When we put the bowl on the table, then it weighs the weight of the bowl. But there's a button here called the tare button. And when you press the tare button, it eliminates the weight of the bowl, and it tells me that the gram is now set at this weight for 0. Here on the readout, it says currently kilograms, but I can also weigh in pounds and ounces. I can weigh in ounces only. I can weigh in milliliters, but I want to be in grams. 1 gram is 1/28 of an ounce. So if you can measure in grams, you are much more accurate, and that counts when you're making pastry. So let's measure out our flours. First is the almond flour, and we need 56 grams. So there's 13, 34, 56 on the button. Wow, I don't often get that lucky. Now we need 40 grams of tapioca flour. Now I could just add 40 to 56, and that would give me 96, but I'm going to press the tare button again. Now it shows that what's on the scale weighs 0, and I can just put enough tapioca flour in until I reach 40. There's 34, 37, 40. Now we know that my flour measurements are accurate. And by the way, that's the reason our website has invested so much in having a metric system, and you can print out any recipe either way and be able to work like this. So we're going to tear that out again. The bowl goes to 0, and we need 34 grams of coconut flour. There's 14, 27, a little too much, 34. When I was working in the pizza restaurant, our head baker would make all of the pizza dough for the day. And he would use 50-pound bags and make 100 pounds or 150 pounds worth of flour into pizza dough. And he'd do that 2 or 3 times a day. What interested me is that when he started putting in the other things, he used a gram scale. Even at the 100-pound level, he would use a gram scale to make sure his ratios of yeast and salt and all of the other items in the pizza dough were exactly precise. That's what we're doing here, and it makes these really foolproof biscuits. Now we're going to add the other half of the leavening ingredients, which is baking soda, baking powder, and a little bit of salt. All right, those are so small that they get measured in teaspoons and tablespoons, and that's true both in the metric and in the US customary system. So we've got 3 tablespoons of nutritional yeast, some garlic powder, and some dried parsley. And those are going to help give a savory flavor to the biscuit. I'm going to lose the scale because I don't need that any longer. And I'm going to stir up all of those dry ingredients so they kind of get incorporated. Doesn't take much. We just want to spread all of that around. And now we're adding butter. Now butter is really important because it's also what gives, in addition to great taste, it gives a lift. And so you'll see that I've got the butter cut very finely, and I'm putting it in, I'm kind of scattering it in the flour mixture. And the idea is that if you can chop this butter up really finely, the smaller the pebble of butter that is surrounded with flour, the more lift and the more mouthfeel your recipe will have. So now you can see I've got this cool little device. It's basically, I don't know what it is, it's just 5 wires side by side. But I can use that. This is referred to as cutting in the butter. If you ever see that in a recipe, you'll know that this is what they're talking about. And the idea is to not stir the butter in, because that would make a dough like a cookie dough. When you do this, it's a pastry dough because you have butter surrounded by flour. The butter will melt away, leave a nice little pocket of air that tastes heavenly. So I'm almost done, and you can see that when I'm finished here, it kind of looks like, almost looks like cornmeal. And now to turn it into the biscuits, we're going to add our 2 leavening. Do you remember being in middle school and doing Mount Vesuvius? Maybe even elementary school. And you had vinegar and baking soda. Well, the baking soda's already in here. The vinegar's in here. The egg has a little bit of that same properties. So we're going to pour the liquid in, and we're going to take the flax egg and put it in. See how it's a little bit gelatinous? We'll put the flax egg in. That will also bind this together and give it some lift. And we're going to stir this ever so lightly. My grandmother kept her family alive in the Great Depression by having a bakery in her basement. And I remember as a kid working with Grandma in the kitchen, and she would say, "Don't stir too much, you'll ruin it." We're going to let this sit for a bit. The liquid is now incorporated in the flour, but if we let it sit for 5 or 7 minutes, that liquid will bloom in the flour mixture and we'll have a much different texture in a couple of moments. So we're going to take a break, and then we'll plate these up and get them ready for the oven. The batter, the biscuit mix, has been sitting for about 7 minutes. So we're going to spoon this up I have a number 40 scoop, and that's just the right size. It's just a little under a tablespoon, and it's just the right size to make these biscuits. We're going to make them in 2 layers. So we'll make these first. There's 1, 2, 3. That one didn't quite get full, so we'll do that again. Now we got it. 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now I'm going to take a spoon and the back of a wet spoon to press these down just a bit. And that water helps it just slide right off. Doesn't work terribly well if you pick it up, but if you slide it off, it works great. Like that. A couple more. And here. And lastly, here. There we go. Now we'll put the second half of the biscuit on top, and this makes it just a wonderful mouthful of flavor with every bite. 2, 3, 4, 5, and last one. Here we go. Take all of that out of the bowl, and voila. There we are. Now we're going to do the same thing. By the way, I preheated the oven to 400 degrees, and I heard it beep a few minutes ago, and that means that it's up to temperature. So these will be gorgeous. Again, the reason for using the gram scale is that I know my proportions are the same every time. And so there we are. 6 biscuits ready to go in the oven. Give us 15 minutes, we'll be back. And so here they are, a nice batch of garlic cheddar almond flour biscuits. And these will go great with any kind of savory dish you like. I recommend the farro mushroom soup, and I hope you enjoy this. I'm Chef Leander, to your health.